Jalan Rakyat by DN Aidit was published in 1952 during the early years of Indonesian independence. At the time, Indonesia was already free from colonial rule, but many social and economic problems still existed. Poverty, inequality, and unfair economic structure were still strongly felt by the people. The state had formally achieved sovereignty, yet the everyday life of ordinary citizens showed that independence had not fully brought justice or prosperity. Aidit argues that independence should not only mean political freedom. True independence, according to him, must also include economic and social justice. If the people are still poor and oppressed, then independence have not fully achieved its goals. This idea is closely related to the concept of the state in political science, where the state is expected to serve the common good, especially the welfare of its people. In a sense, I view the legitimacy of the state as depending on its ability to improve the material condition of the masses. The main idea in this book is what Aidit calls the people's faith or Jalan Rakyat. This concept means that political struggle must be based on the active participation of the people, especially workers, farmers, and the poor. Aidit critique political movements that are controlled only by elite and do not involve the masses. In his view, such elite-driven politics tends to ignore the real needs of society and only product inequality. Real social change, according to Aidit, can only happen when the people themselves become the main actor in politics. This concept is closely like the communist ideas of democracy. I did believe that democracy should not be limited to formal institutions such as parliament or election. Instead, democracy must be rooted in mass participation and collective struggle. The people should not only choose their leaders, but also active shape political direction and political outcome. Without this active involvement, democracy becomes empty and just a symbolic. I did also strongly critique liberal democracy. He believed that liberal democracy focused too much on procedure, such as election, political parties, and constitutional rule, but often failed to improve the real living condition of the people. According to Aidit, democracy should not only be about voting every few years, but also about the control economic resources and political power in a daily basis. From Aidit perspective, liberal democracy under capitalism tends to favor wealthy elites. Even though everyone formally has equal political rights, economic inequality creates unequal influence over politics. This is why I did request that democracy under capitalism is limited and distorted. Political freedom without economic justice, in his view, cannot be considered true democracy. This idea connects directly to the concept of communist democracy. In communist democracy, democracy is not only formal but substantive. It is measured by how much power the people have over the state and the economy. I did believe that under capitalism, democracy is often controlled by wealthy elites, while ordinary people remain powerless. Therefore, he argued that the state must be transformed into a tool for the people, not a tool for capital owners of feudal interests. From the perspective of political science and state theory, Aidit clearly rejects the idea that the state is neutral. He argued that the state always represents the interests of the dominant class. In post-independent Indonesia, he sees the state as still influenced by capitalist and feudal interests inherited from colonial rule. Because of this, the people must struggle to take control of the state so it can truly serve the majority, not just a small elite. I did also emphasize the importance of mass organization, such as political parties, labor union, and farmer organization. These organizations are not only tools for gaining power, but also for educating people politically. Participation according to IT should be active rather than passive. People should not only vote but also take a part in shaping, monitoring, criticizing state policies. Through this process, the people develop political awareness and collective traits.
In menempuh jalan rakyat, I did place strong attention on economic structure, especially land ownership and agriculture. He believes that without fundamental economic reform, the state cannot achieve social justice. This idea is related to the welfare function of the state in political sense, where the state is expected to intervene actively in order to reduce inequality and protect vulnerable groups. I did argue that land reform is essential because land is the main source of livelihood for the majority of the Indonesian population at the time. Without fair access to land, farmers remain trapped in poverty regardless of political independence. This reflects socialist thinking, where the state plays a central role in managing economic resources to ensure collective welfare rather than private profit. For I did, economic justice is a key requirement for true democracy. Democracy cannot exist meaningfully when economic power is concentrated in the hands of a few. In such conditions, political equality becomes an illusion. Therefore, he believes that the state must actively regulate and recruit the economy to ensure that democracy benefits the majority of the people. However, the book also has several weaknesses. Ide's perspective is very ideological and tends to view society mainly through class conflict. Social reality is often presented in a simplified way of oppressed versus oppressors. This approach does not fully consider the complexity of society, including cultural, religious, and political diversity, which is especially important in a plural country like Indonesia. From the perspective of modern state theory, this kind of thing can be risky. In the state is controlled by only one ideology or one dominant party, it may lead to excess concentration of power. Instead of empowering the people, such a system can silence dissent and limit political freedom. Modern democratic theory emphasizes the importance of pluralism, rule of law, and the protection of minority options. Another important point is that I did see social conflict as unavoidable and even necessary for social change. While conflict can indeed be a drive of transformation, contemporary state theory also emphasizes the role of the state in maintaining social stability and national unity. Excessive polarization can lead to social fragmentation and threaten the cohesion of society. In today's context, menempuh jalan rakyat should be read critically. The ideas presented in this book are no longer applied in Indonesia's political system, especially after the political change following the events of 1965. However, the books remain important as historical and academic source. It helps us understand how ideas about democracy, the state, and popular participation developed in Indonesia early post-independence period. In conclusion, menempuh jalan rakyat is a political work that combines ideas about communism, democracy, state theory, and popular struggle. Its present democracy is a substantive concept rooted in economic justice and mass participation, even though its ideas do not fully align with Indonesia's current political system. The book remains valuable for studying the history of political thought and the development of state theory in Indonesia.
In communist ideology, democracy is not understood narrowly as an electoral system, a mechanism of representation, or merely of the existence of formal political institution. Instead, democracy is seen as an integral part of the process of social transformation aimed at abolishing class-based society and realizing comprehensive human emancipation. This understanding is rooted in the critique by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels of liberal democracy as it developed within the capitalist system. From a Marxist perspective, liberal democracy, despite upholding principle of equal right and political freedom, remains fundamentally a form of bourgeois democracy. The journal Democracy in Marxism, exploring Marx's idea of true democracy, explain the democracy in capitalist society provides only formal equality in the political sphere, while economic inequality is maintained. As a result, real power does not lie in the hand of the people as a whole, but is controlled by the capitalist class. Therefore, liberal democracy is regarded and failing to create substantive social justice. Within communist ideology, democracy is understood as an instrument of the proletariat's class struggle to seize political power from the bourgeois. Democracy is not neutral, rather, it possesses a class character. Lenin emphasized that democracy always reflects the interest of the ruling class. Thus, proletarian democracy is considered more authentic because it is oriented toward the interest of majority of working people. This form of democracy does not merely grant voting right, but also ensures the direct involvement of the people in political decision making and economic management. Furthermore, Marxist journal emphasizes that proletarian democracy constituted a transitional phase in the process toward a classless society. During this phase, the state is still necessary an instrument to suppress the remnants of the bourgeois domination and to protect in interest of the proletarian revolution. The form of democracy that emerges is often manifested through a system of workers' council, which enable the direct participation of the working class in governance. Democracy is this model is considered more substantive because it integrates political and economic dimensions simultaneously. In the ideal vision of communist democracy is no longer understood as a political system spread from social life. Once private ownership of the means of production has been abolished and class antagonism have disappeared, the state instrument of power will also wither away. At this stage, democracy attains its highest meaning, the collective and egalitarian management of shared life, free from structural coercion and class domination. Thus, the meaning of democracy according to communist ideology is an emancipatory process that goes beyond formal political procedures. Democracy is a means of social transformation toward a classless society, rather than an end in itself. This understanding underscores the true democracy, in the communist view, can only be realized when economic justice and social equality have genuinely been achieved.
It is known that within the communist perspective, there exists a distinct normativity of democracy that differs from the general understanding of democracy. In communism, democracy is not merely interpreted as a system of government that emphasizes formal procedure, such as free election, political competition, and the protection of individual liberties. Instead, democracy is understood as a political instrument for class struggle aimed at realizing the power of the working people, particularly the working class and peasant. This difference demonstrates that democracy is not a single, universal concept, but one that is strongly influenced by the ideology and theories underlying the state. In the study state of theory, understanding such differences requires mastery of various foundational theories so that the concept of the state can be presented comprehensively. One of these is the theory of the state. In communist state theory, the state is viewed as an instrument of class power used by the proletariat to overthrow bourgeois domination. The state is not considered neutral, but rather as an ideological tool that serves the interests of the working class. According to Marxist theory, the state is also temporary in nature and is expected to wither away once a classless society has been achieved. In contrast, liberal democratic state theory views the state as a relatively neutral organization of power whose main function is to regulate public life, maintain order, and protect the rights and freedoms of all citizens regardless of social class. Furthermore, these differences in democratic understanding can be identified and analyzed through the theories of sovereignty. In the communist perspective, sovereignty is formally claimed to belong to the people. However, in practice, it is exercised through a vanguard party that is believed to best represent the interests of the working class. Sovereignty is therefore not pluralistic, but centralized in a dominant political force. This differs from the general theory of popular sovereignty in democratic system, which place sovereignty in the hands of the people as a whole and exercise it through representative institution, free and fair election, and broad political participation. From the standpoint of the theory of power, communism perceives power as a legitimate and necessary means to preserve revolutionary achievement and protect the interests of the working class. As a result, the concentration of power is often considered as acceptable as long as it serves ideological, and collective goals. Power is not strictly limited because such limitations are viewed as obstacles to revolutionary objectives. In contrast, power theory in constitutional democracies emphasizes the limitation of control of power. The principle of separation of powers, checks and balance, and institutional oversight are essential to prevent the abuse of authority by those in power. Meanwhile, through the theory of the Constitution, the contrast becomes even clearer. In communist thought, the Constitution is often regarded as flexible political instrument that can be adjusted according to ideological needs and revolutionary goals. It is not always positioned as the supreme law that restrains state power. On the other hand, in modern constitutional democracies, the Constitution is regarded as the highest legal authority that limits governmental power, regulates relations among state institutions, and guarantees fundamental rights and freedom. In conclusion, understanding the normative concept of democracy in the communist perspective requires a comprehensive grasp of the core theories in the study of the state. Thank you.